Hello there, people of the internet. Today we are having a look at the 300 Weatherby Magnum. Look at that monster. And for a good size comparison, this right here is 30-06 Springfield. I thought the 30-06 was an absolute monster of a cartridge, but boy oh boy, that 300 Weatherby Magnum absolutely makes it look like the guy that, never mind. So this right here is a little video series that I'm doing in an effort to earn my way up to 100,000 subscribers. I don't have a means to go out to a gun range right now, so I'm just kind of going over some cartridges that I have. And we're talking about using particular cartridges for particular hunting applications. We're going to go ahead and get into some of the ballistics behind the 300 Weatherby Magnum and compare them to some other cartridges here. And, well, predominantly 30-06 since I have that right here and I'm staring right at it. So hopefully you guys want to stick around for that, and hopefully this video earns your subscription. And, well, let's go ahead and dive right in. So the 300 Weatherby Magnum, this absolute monster behemoth of a cartridge here. This right here was first introduced by Roy Weatherby in 1944, and it has been used all around the world for a very, very long time for big game hunting. And whenever I look at the ballistic capabilities of this absolute freaking monster of a cartridge, which 30-06 can't even begin to hide, that is insane. This is a really large cartridge. All right, whenever we start to look at the ballistics, we start to see why big game hunters decide to go for this absolute behemoth of a cartridge. For the most part, 30-06, as far as power goes, is like way more power than I need here in the state of Florida. So 300 Weatherby Magnum, I don't even have a rifle chambered in 300 Weatherby Magnum, but I got quite a few rounds available for it, so I might look into getting myself a 300 Weatherby Magnum rifle. As a matter of fact, I got quite a few rounds available for a bunch of stuff, but no rifles chambered in those calibers. So let's have a look at some ballistics here. So we're going to start off small with our small projectiles, and we're going to see what the 300 Weatherby Magnum can send those projectiles at. So first off, 30-06. This right here will send a 150 grain projectile, commercial loading at about 3,000 feet per second. The original military loading was more like 2,800 feet per second, but we're going to go ahead and bump this up to the best chances it has against the 300 Weatherby Magnum. So that 150 grain is going to travel at about 3,000 feet per second from a 30-06. When we bump that up to the 300 Weatherby Magnum, and oh boy, now we're traveling at about 3,550 feet per second with the same bullet. That is absolutely insane velocities. We have 4,200 foot-pounds of energy transferred onto our target. A 150 grain projectile at 3,550 feet per second. Let me put that in perspective for you. 223.556 gets its effectiveness from high velocities. It is a pretty incredibly effective round on soft tissues. Well, that 150 or with 223, if we have a 55 grain projectile, it's going to be traveling at about 3,200 feet per second from a 20-inch barrel. And well, our 300 Weatherby Magnum here, which is significantly more powerful, sends a bullet that is about three times larger than our 55 grain projectile. Not quite, but pretty close to 3 times larger, at 300 feet per second faster than the 223. That is an insane amount of power that we're sending downrange. And we can get heavier. We can launch heavier bullets from this 300 Weatherby Magnum. 165 grain projectile. That's going to travel about 3,400 feet per second. A little heavier, a little bit slower. We're still going to be sitting around that 4,200 foot-pounds of energy onto your target with this bullet at, that velocity. I have noticed that with 300 Weatherby Magnum, you tend to steer around that 4,200 foot-pounds of energy onto your target, no matter what cartridge or no matter what, no matter what loading it is that you decide to use, whatever grain weight projectile it is that you decide to use. They tend to steer around that 4,200 foot-pounds. Some a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, but around that average. All right, we bump it up even heavier. 180 grain projectile out of our 300 Weatherby Magnum. That's going to be traveling at about 3,250 feet per second. Still have about 4,200 foot-pounds of energy transferred onto your target, but heavier, larger bullet that's going to hold itself together a lot better. Now, your lighter weight bullets, those are going to be better at hitting out at longer ranges just because gravity is going to pull them down less because they spend less time in the air. So heavier bullets are just going to drop more, but they're going to hold themselves together and have more penetrative capabilities upon impact on that target. So although you have the same amount of energy transfer onto your target, you'll get better penetration with the heavier projectiles. They will simply be able to hold their mass more, and they're actually better at holding velocities out at extremely long ranges, better than your lightweight rounds. So bump that up to an even heavier projectile. Oh god, 200 grain bullet traveling at 3,050 feet per second. All right, another perspective for you. 200 grain bullet. If we were to have a 62 grain 5.56, that's going to travel at about your 3,000 foot per second. That's like over 3 times the bullet traveling at the same velocity from the 300 Weatherby Magnum. That is an absolutely unfathomable amount of power going downrange. We do see a slight drop in energy on target. I noticed that as we get to larger and larger projectiles, even with these Magnum cartridges, we see a diminishing return. But we drop about 50 foot-pounds on average with this loading. We get 4,150 foot-pounds of energy transferred onto your target. But we can get bigger bullets. So we bump that up to a 220 grain bullet, which is just a very heavy bullet traveling incredibly fast. It's going to be traveling at about 2,850 feet per second, which is overwhelmingly phenomenal. Another perspective for you. 30-06, the military loading for a 150 grain projectile was about that velocity. And this right here is the 300 Weatherby Magnum is launching a 220 grain projectile at that same velocity. That is nuts. It's going to have 3,950 foot-pounds of energy onto its target. So, yeah, that's a lot of power going downrange. And boy, does it make for a really, really good large game hunting cartridge. I absolutely see why hunters around the world decide to use it for large game hunting. Because, man, is it overwhelmingly powerful enough to be able to handle that. That being said, do I consider this a good hunting cartridge? No, I actually do not. I think that this right here is too powerful to go after what most people would be going after. If you're going after large game, phenomenal round. Go for it. But most people aren't, hunting game in Africa. Of course, you got to pick the right tool for the job. And most people would like that. That's a lot of power, even for large game over here on, over here in the United States, even with the larger game that we have. That there would damage a lot of meat, especially as you increase to your larger and larger projectiles. Like there's just a lot. That's a lot of a cartridge. If you are going to go after large game, they would have to be pretty significant large game for that 300 Weatherby Magnum to be seen as worth it, versus just going after something with, say, a 30-06. I know if I were to go after deer here in the state of Florida, and the deer around here get about 150 pounds or so, and I were to use 300 Weatherby Magnum, that would literally blow the deer in half, and I wouldn't have much to bring home and eat. Like, that's a tremendous amount of power. So for large game hunters, yeah, I could see that being a good, adequate cartridge. But most hunters aren't large game hunters. And most hunters, that's a lot of power going down range, and way more than most hunters are going to need, including myself. So it does have its particular niche. It does have its particular place in the world. And it absolutely will put down whatever it is that you're aiming at. However, boy, that's a lot. That's a lot. My personal opinion, I would say that's too much for the average hunter. So this being said, I'm sure that's probably going to upset some people who absolutely love the cartridge. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that it's very, 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 very powerful. And, well, you got to be careful on what it is that you decide to hunt with it. And of course, that's the same with every single cartridge out there. Like, for example, I got no problems going after potbelly pigs or coyotes, or insert your choice of small game here, with something like a 223. However, I wouldn't go after something like Alaskan bear with that 223. I would probably pick something more like the 300 Weatherby Magnum if I was going to go after something large like that. 30-06 would probably be able to get the job done with proper shot placement, but that's the same argument with every cartridge. We could have that discussion in another video. Thanks for watching, folks. I do appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Let me know what you guys' opinion is on this particular cartridge. Absolutely nuts level of power. Like, there's a reason why I don't have a rifle chambered in this cartridge, even though I have ammunition for that particular rifle. So, thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next episode.
Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.